In the heart of a small town in Iowa, where cornfields stretched endlessly and Friday night basketball games were the highlight of the week, Caitlin Clark had become a household name. Her name echoed through the hallways of schools, across dinner tables, and even in casual conversations at the local diner. Known for her unmatched talent on the court, Caitlin wasn't just a player, she was a phenomenon. With her lightning-fast moves, jaw-dropping three-pointers, and an unshakable determination, she had captured the hearts of everyone who watched her play. But what truly set her apart wasn't just her skill, it was her humility. Despite her growing fame, Caitlin remained grounded, always taking time to sign autographs, pose for pictures, and chat with fans after games. Among her biggest admirers was Emily, an 8-year-old girl with a mop of curly brown hair and eyes that sparkled with curiosity. Emily lived just a few blocks away from the high school gym where Caitlin played. Every game night, she would sit on the bleachers with her mother, clutching a foam finger and cheering louder than anyone else. To Emily, Caitlin wasn't just a basketball star, she was a hero. She loved how Caitlin seemed to glide across the court like she was dancing, effortlessly sinking shots that left the crowd roaring. But more than her athletic prowess, Emily admired Caitlin's kindness. She had seen videos online of Caitlin helping younger kids practice their dribbling or offering words of encouragement to teammates after tough losses. These moments made Caitlin feel less like a distant celebrity and more like someone Emily could relate to. One sunny Saturday afternoon, after a particularly thrilling game, Emily found herself standing nervously near the exit of the gymnasium. The air buzzed with excitement as fans lingered, hoping to catch a glimpse of Caitlin before she left. Emily clutched a crumpled piece of paper tightly in her hands, her knuckles turning white. On it, she had scribbled a list of questions she wanted to ask Caitlin. Most of them were typical kid queries. What's your favorite snack? And how do you make your shots so perfect? But one question stood out, a question that had been weighing heavily on her mind for weeks. It wasn't about basketball or fame or anything superficial. It was something deeper, something she wasn't entirely sure Caitlin would want to answer. Behind her, Emily's mother gave her a gentle nudge. "You can do it, sweetie," she whispered, her voice filled with encouragement. Taking a deep breath, Emily mustered up the courage to approach Caitlin, who was surrounded by a group of kids eagerly waiting for autographs. As the line slowly dwindled, Emily's heart raced faster. Finally, it was her turn. Caitlin looked down at the little girl, her face lighting up with a warm smile. "Hi there," she said cheerfully. "What's your name?" "Emily," the girl replied, her voice barely above a whisper. She hesitated for a moment, suddenly feeling self-conscious. What if Caitlin thought her question was silly? What if she laughed or brushed her off? But then she remembered something her mom always told her. The best questions are the ones that come from the heart. Summoning every ounce of bravery she had, Emily blurted out, "Caitlin, can I ask you something?" Caitlin tilted her head, intrigued. "Of course. Ask away," she said, her tone inviting and friendly. Emily unfolded the piece of paper, smoothing out the wrinkles as best she could. She glanced at the list briefly before looking up at Caitlin with wide, earnest eyes. "Do you believe in God?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. "And if you do, why?" The question hung in the air, heavy and unexpected. For a moment, Caitlin froze, caught off guard not by the question itself but by its depth. She had answered countless interviews and interacted with thousands of fans, but no one had ever asked her something so personal, especially not a child. The noise around them seemed to fade as all eyes turned toward Caitlin, waiting for her response. Parents holding their children's hands paused mid-step, teenagers recording videos lowered their phones, and even the janitor sweeping the floor stopped to listen. Caitlin instinctively knelt down, bringing herself eye level with Emily. She didn't want this moment to feel like a press conference or a staged interview. It was far too important for that. Looking into Emily's innocent yet thoughtful eyes, Caitlin took a deep breath. "That's a really good question, Emily," she began, her voice soft and sincere. "Yes, I do believe in God." As she spoke, Caitlin felt a strange mix of emotions swirling inside her. She had never publicly discussed her faith before, partly because it felt so personal, and partly because she didn't want to impose her beliefs on others. But here was this little girl, standing before her with genuine curiosity, reminding her that sometimes the most meaningful conversations are the ones we least expect. Caitlin went on to explain how faith had been a cornerstone of her life since childhood. She talked about attending church with her family every Sunday, singing hymns and learning Bible stories that shaped her understanding of the world. She admitted that her family wasn't perfect. They argued, faced challenges, and made mistakes. But their faith had always been a source of strength during difficult times. Caitlin shared specific moments when her belief in God had carried her through hardships. There were days when basketball didn't bring her joy anymore, when the pressure to perform felt suffocating, and when self-doubt threatened to consume her. During those times, she turned to prayer, finding solace in the idea that there was something greater than herself guiding her path. As she recounted these experiences, Caitlin's voice cracked slightly and tears began to well up in her eyes. She hadn't planned to cry, but the raw honesty of the moment overwhelmed her. Here she was, baring her soul to a room full of strangers, and yet it felt strangely liberating. Emily listened intently, her head tilted slightly as if trying to soak in every word. When Caitlin finished speaking, the little girl reached out and wrapped her arms around Caitlin in a tight hug. It was a gesture so pure and heartfelt that it brought fresh tears to Caitlin's eyes. In that embrace, she realized something profound. This conversation wasn't just about answering a question, it was about connection. It was about two people, separated by age and experience, coming together in a moment of vulnerability and trust. For years, Caitlin had kept her faith private, unsure of how others might perceive it. Yet here was Emily, reminding her that authenticity has a unique power to inspire and unite. The gymnasium remained silent for a few seconds, the kind of silence that speaks volumes. Then slowly, applause began to ripple through the crowd. It started with a few claps, hesitant at first, but soon grew into a thunderous ovation. People nodded in agreement, some wiping away tears of their own. Caitlin stood up, still holding Emily's hand, and smiled at the sea of faces surrounding them. She didn't know it yet, but this single interaction would change her life and the lives of many others in ways she couldn't have imagined. For Emily, the moment was equally transformative. As she walked home with her mother that evening, she couldn't stop talking about Caitlin's response. "She believes in God, Mommy," Emily said excitedly, "and she said it helps her when things get hard." Her mother smiled, squeezing her hand gently. "See, sweetheart? That's why it's important to ask questions. You never know what you might learn or who you might inspire." Little did they know, this was just the beginning of a story that would touch hearts far beyond their small Iowa town. The next morning, the story of Emily and Caitlin's heartfelt interaction began to spread like wildfire. Parents who had been at the game recounted the moment to their friends over coffee. Teachers mentioned it during classroom discussions, and soon enough, snippets of the conversation found their way onto social media. A local news outlet even posted a video clip of Caitlin kneeling down to speak with Emily, her voice trembling as she opened up about her faith. The caption read, "A little girl asks Caitlin Clark about God. Her response brings her to tears." Within hours, the post went viral, capturing the attention of people far beyond Iowa. As the days passed, Caitlin couldn't escape the buzz surrounding that evening. Strangers approached her in grocery stores, thanking her for being so candid about her beliefs. Some shared their own struggles with faith, admitting they had drifted away from it but felt inspired to reconnect after hearing her words. Others expressed gratitude for how she handled such a sensitive topic with grace and authenticity. Messages poured into her inbox from across the country, some from devout Christians, others from people of different faiths, or no faith at all. What struck Caitlin most was the common thread running through these responses. Everyone wanted to talk about something deeper than basketball. At first, Caitlin wasn't sure how to process the overwhelming reaction. She had always seen herself as just a player, a girl who loved the game and worked hard to excel at it. But now people were looking to her not only as an athlete, but also as someone who could offer guidance or inspiration. It was flattering, yes, but it also made her nervous. Could she live up to those expectations? Would people judge her if she said the wrong thing? These questions weighed heavily on her mind as she tried to focus on upcoming games and practices. One afternoon, while sitting alone in the gym after practice, Caitlin reflected on everything that had happened. She thought about Emily's innocent question and how it had forced her to confront parts of herself she usually kept hidden. For years, Caitlin had compartmentalized her life, basketball on one side, faith on the other. She rarely spoke about her beliefs publicly because she feared alienating those who didn't share them. Yet here was this little girl reminding her that vulnerability could be powerful, that sharing your truth might resonate with someone in ways you never anticipated. That realization sparked a shift within Caitlin. She decided she wouldn't shy away from opportunities to discuss her faith moving forward, but she would do so thoughtfully. During interviews, when asked about her success or what motivated her, she began weaving in stories about how her relationship with God helped her stay grounded. She emphasized that her beliefs weren't about perfection. They were about leaning on something greater than herself when life got tough. To her surprise, reporters didn't push back or try to steer the conversation elsewhere. Instead, many seemed genuinely interested in exploring this side of her journey. Caitlin also started using her platform to give back to the community in new ways. Inspired by Emily's courage, she partnered with local organizations to host events focused on mentorship and spiritual growth. One initiative, called Courts and Conviction, brought together kids from diverse backgrounds for workshops that combined basketball drills with discussions about values like kindness, perseverance, and faith. At first, Caitlin worried that some families might feel excluded, but the response was overwhelmingly positive. Parents appreciated the inclusive approach, and kids loved the chance to bond over shared experiences both on and off the court. Meanwhile, Emily's life was changing, too. Word of her bold question reached her school, where teachers praised her for having the courage to ask something so profound. Classmates who once teased her for being quiet now sought her advice on everything from homework assignments to personal struggles. Though shy at first, Emily gradually embraced her newfound role as a role model. With Caitlin's encouragement, she began speaking at youth groups and church events, sharing her experience and urging other children to ask big questions without fear. Their friendship continued to grow stronger with each passing week. Caitlin often invited Emily to games, treating her like part of the family. During timeouts, Caitlin would glance toward the stands, finding comfort in seeing Emily cheering her on with unwavering enthusiasm. Off the court, they spent hours talking about everything under the sun, from their favorite books to their dreams for the future. Through these conversations, Caitlin discovered new layers of wisdom in Emily's innocence. The little girl had a way of cutting through pretense and getting straight to the heart of things, forcing Caitlin to reflect deeply on her own values and priorities. One Saturday morning, Caitlin took Emily to a nearby park for a casual game of one-on-one. As they dribbled and shot hoops, Emily surprised Caitlin with another thought-provoking question. "Do you think God cares about basketball?" she asked, tilting her head curiously. Caitlin laughed softly before answering. "I think God cares about whatever makes us happy and helps us grow," she replied. "For me, basketball is more than just a game. It's a way to connect with people, to learn discipline, and to trust in something bigger than myself. So yeah, I think he cares about it, but maybe not in the way we expect." Emily nodded thoughtfully, absorbing Caitlin's words. Then, with a mischievous grin, she challenged Caitlin to a free throw contest. They laughed and teased each other as they played, momentarily forgetting the weight of the world outside the court. In moments like these, Caitlin realized how much joy simple connections could bring. Fame and accolades were fleeting, but relationships built on honesty and mutual respect were enduring. As weeks turned into months, Caitlin noticed subtle changes in herself. She felt lighter somehow, as though shedding the burden of pretending to have everything figured out. Sharing her faith openly had given her a sense of freedom she hadn't experienced before. She no longer felt the need to separate parts of her identity. Instead, she embraced them as interconnected pieces of who she was. This newfound authenticity radiated outward, inspiring those around her to do the same. For Emily, the impact was equally profound. The little girl who once hesitated to raise her hand in class now stood confidently in front of crowds, encouraging others to seek answers to their biggest questions. She carried Caitlin's message of vulnerability and connection wherever she went, spreading ripples of change in her own small yet significant way. Together they proved that even the simplest interactions could spark movements rooted in love, faith, and the belief that everyone has a story worth telling. Though neither Caitlin nor Emily knew it at the time, their bond would continue to shape lives long after the initial buzz faded. Their story wasn't just about a basketball star and a curious child. It was about humanity. It was about the power of asking questions, the beauty of honest answers, and the transformative potential of connection. And as Caitlin prepared for her final college season, she carried not just the weight of expectations, but also the warmth of knowing she had touched hearts in ways she never imagined possible. As the months rolled on, Caitlin's decision to embrace her faith publicly began to ripple outward in ways she hadn't anticipated. What started as a single heartfelt conversation with Emily had evolved into something much bigger, a movement that transcended basketball courts in small-town Iowa. People from all walks of life were drawn to Caitlin's authenticity, her willingness to be vulnerable about topics many considered taboo. Strangers sent messages sharing how her words had inspired them to reconnect with their own beliefs or seek answers to questions they'd long buried. Some even traveled hundreds of miles just to attend one of her Courts and Conviction events, eager to hear her speak firsthand. One chilly November evening, Caitlin stood at the front of a packed community center, addressing a diverse crowd of parents, children, coaches, and local leaders. The room buzzed with anticipation as she stepped up to the microphone. Dressed casually in jeans and a sweatshirt, she looked more like a friend than a celebrity. Her warm smile put everyone at ease as she began to share her journey, how basketball had been her first love but faith had become her anchor. She spoke candidly about moments when doubt crept in, when injuries threatened to derail her career, or when criticism from others made her question herself. "I used to think I had to have everything figured out," Caitlin admitted, her voice steady, yet filled with emotion. "But over time I realized that's not the point. Life isn't about having all the answers. It's about trusting that you'll find your way even when things don't make sense." She paused, letting her words sink in before continuing. "Faith has taught me to lean on something greater than myself during those tough times. And honestly, it's what keeps me going." Her honesty resonated deeply with the audience. Parents nodded in agreement, teenagers scribbled notes in their journals, and young kids sat wide-eyed, hanging onto every word. Afterward, dozens lined up to thank her personally. One woman tearfully recounted how Caitlin's story had given her hope after losing her job. A teenage boy shyly admitted he'd been struggling with feelings of inadequacy, but now felt encouraged to keep pushing forward. Each interaction reminded Caitlin why she had chosen this path, to remind people they weren't alone. Meanwhile, Emily continued to blossom under Caitlin's mentorship. The once timid girl was now a regular fixture at community events, often introducing Caitlin before she spoke. Standing behind the podium, Emily would beam with pride as she announced, "This is my friend Caitlin. She's really good at basketball, but she's even better at helping people believe in themselves." The crowd would erupt into applause, and Caitlin would chuckle, mouthing a silent thank you to Emily before taking the stage. Their bond grew stronger with each shared experience. On weekends, Caitlin took Emily along to volunteer at food banks, visit nursing homes, or help coach youth basketball teams. These outings gave Emily a front-row seat to Caitlin's kindness and generosity, reinforcing lessons about empathy and service. For Caitlin, spending time with Emily served as a grounding force, reminding her of the importance of staying connected to her roots despite her rising fame. One Saturday afternoon, while volunteering at a local shelter, Emily tugged on Caitlin's sleeve and asked, "Do you ever feel scared about talking about God so much?" Caitlin knelt down to meet her gaze, considering the question carefully. "Sometimes," she admitted, There are days when I worry people might misunderstand me or think I'm trying to push my beliefs on them. But then I remember something important. You can't control how others react. All you can do is stay true to yourself and trust that your intentions matter more than anything else. Emily mulled this over, her brow furrowed in thought. Finally, she nodded. I guess that makes sense, she said. It's kind of like shooting hoops. You can't always make every shot, but if you practice and try your best, it's still worth it. Caitlin laughed, ruffling Emily's hair, affectionately. Exactly, that's such a smart way to look at it. Their exchange highlighted the unique dynamic between them. While Caitlin offered guidance, Emily often surprised her with insights far beyond her years. Together, they created a balance of wisdom and wonder that enriched both their lives. Back home, Caitlin faced challenges too. Not everyone applauded her decision to intertwine faith with her public persona. Critics argued that athletes should stick to sports and leave spirituality out of the spotlight. Some online trolls accused her of being hypocritical or using religion for publicity. At first, these comments stung. Caitlin spent sleepless nights questioning whether she was doing the right thing, but eventually, she learned to tune out the negativity. She reminded herself of the countless positive messages she received daily, messages from people who found comfort, strength, or inspiration in her words. Those voices mattered more than any harsh critique. To cope with the pressure, Caitlin leaned heavily on her support system, her family, friends, teammates, and of course, Emily. Whenever doubt crept in, she turned to prayer, journaling, or long conversations with loved ones. Slowly but surely, she built resilience, learning to focus on the impact she was making rather than the opinions she couldn't control. By spring, Caitlin's efforts began yielding tangible results. Local churches and schools invited her to speak at graduations, fundraisers, and spiritual retreats. National organizations reached out, asking her to collaborate on projects promoting youth empowerment and mental health awareness. Even major brands took notice, partnering with her for campaigns centered around values like perseverance, integrity, and faith. Through it all, Caitlin remained steadfast in her mission: to use her platform not just to shine a light on herself, but to uplift others. For Emily, the changes were equally transformative. Teachers praised her leadership skills, noting how she rallied classmates to participate in charity drives or stand up against bullying. Classmates who once dismissed her as quiet or unassuming now looked to her as a source of strength and encouragement. At home, Emily's parents marveled at her newfound confidence. She's growing into such a remarkable young lady, her mother often remarked, tears glistening in her eyes. And we owe so much of that to Caitlin. Despite her growing responsibilities, Caitlin never lost sight of what truly mattered: connection. Whether signing autographs after games, speaking at community events, or simply playing catch with Emily in the park, she prioritized building relationships over chasing accolades. This approach endeared her even more to fans, who saw her not as a distant idol but as someone relatable and real. One evening, as Caitlin and Emily sat together on the porch watching the sunset, Emily turned to her and asked, "Do you think God planned for us to meet?" Caitlin smiled, wrapping an arm around the little girl's shoulders. "I don't know for sure," she replied, "but I do believe that sometimes the smallest moments can lead to the biggest changes. Maybe meeting you was one of those moments, for both of us." Emily grinned, leaning into Caitlin's side. "Well, I'm glad it happened," she said softly. So was Caitlin. As the sky painted itself in hues of orange and pink, she felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude for the journey she was on, for the people who walked beside her, and for the little girl whose courage had sparked it all. Though neither of them knew what the future held, one thing was certain: their story was far from over. Together they had planted seeds of hope, faith, and connection that would continue to grow, touching lives in ways they could only begin to imagine. As the months turned into years, Caitlin's influence continued to expand beyond anything she or Emily could have imagined. Her decision to embrace vulnerability and share her faith openly had not only transformed her own life, but also inspired countless others to seek deeper meaning in their own journeys. From small-town Iowa to national stages, Caitlin became a beacon of hope, a reminder that success isn't just about achievements, it's about the impact you leave on the world. 1. Summer afternoon, Caitlin found herself standing on a massive stage at a youth leadership conference in Chicago. Thousands of teenagers filled the auditorium, their phones raised to capture the moment as she stepped up to the microphone. The energy was electric, yet Caitlin remained calm. She took a deep breath, smiled warmly, and began her speech with a story familiar to many, her encounter with Emily. "I'll never forget the day an 8-year-old girl asked me if I believed in God," Caitlin said, her voice steady and heartfelt. "At first I didn't know how to answer, but as I spoke, something inside me shifted. For the first time I realized that my faith wasn't something I needed to hide. It was something that could bring light to others." The crowd listened, intently, hanging on to every word. Some nodded in agreement, while others wiped away tears. Caitlin went on to share how that single question had changed her perspective. She explained how embracing her beliefs publicly had opened doors she never expected, opportunities to connect with people from all walks of life, to inspire young minds and to remind everyone that no one is alone in their struggles. "Faith isn't about having all the answers," she emphasized. "It's about trusting that even when life feels overwhelming, there's something greater guiding us through." Her message resonated deeply with the audience. Afterward, hundreds of teens lined up to speak with her, sharing their own stories of doubt, fear, and hope. One boy, barely 13, told Caitlin he had been struggling with anxiety but felt encouraged to keep fighting after hearing her talk. A girl who dreamed of becoming a doctor thanked Caitlin for reminding her to stay grounded despite her ambitions. Each conversation reinforced Caitlin's belief that her purpose extended far beyond basketball. Meanwhile, Emily was growing into a remarkable young woman. Now 12 years old, she carried herself with a confidence that belied her age. Her friendship with Caitlin had shaped her in profound ways, teaching her the value of asking bold questions and staying true to oneself. At school, Emily became known as the girl who asked Caitlin Clark about God, a title she wore proudly. Teachers praised her curiosity, classmates admired her courage, and strangers often approached her to express gratitude for the ripple effect her question had created. Emily also took Caitlin's example to heart, finding creative ways to make a difference in her community. She organized fundraisers for local charities, led anti-bullying campaigns at her school, and volunteered regularly at shelters and food banks. Though she still loved basketball, her passions now included helping others discover their own potential. Caitlin often joked that Emily was turning into a mini version of herself, but with even more determination. Their bond remained as strong as ever. Every weekend, Caitlin made time for Emily, whether it was taking her to games, practicing free throws in the park, or simply sitting together under the stars talking about life. These moments were precious to both of them. For Caitlin, they served as reminders of why she played basketball, not for fame or accolades, but for the connections it fostered. For Emily, they were opportunities to learn from someone she deeply admired. One crisp autumn evening, as they strolled through a pumpkin patch during a fall festival, Emily posed another thought-provoking question. "Do you think we're supposed to change the whole world?" she asked, kicking a pile of leaves with her boots. Caitlin chuckled, stopping to pick up a small pumpkin before answering. "I don't think any one person can change the entire world," she said thoughtfully. "But I do believe each of us has the power to make a difference in our corner of it. Sometimes, the smallest actions, like asking a question or lending a hand, can create waves of change." Emily mulled this over, her brow furrowed in concentration. Finally, she grinned. "So maybe I don't have to save the whole planet. Just my little part of it, right?" "Exactly," Caitlin replied, ruffling her hair affectionately. "And trust me, your little part is pretty amazing." While Caitlin and Emily thrived in their respective roles, challenges inevitably arose. As Caitlin's visibility grew, so did the scrutiny. Critics continued to question her decision to intertwine faith with her public persona, accusing her of pushing personal beliefs onto a broader audience. Social media trolls launched attacks, mocking her sincerity and dismissing her efforts as performative. There were days when Caitlin felt weighed down by the negativity, questioning whether she should retreat back into the safety of silence. But every time doubt crept in, Caitlin reminded herself of the positive impact she was making. She thought about the messages flooding her inbox, stories of people overcoming hardships, rediscovering their faith, or finding strength in her words. She remembered the faces of children lighting up during courts and conviction events, the hugs from parents thanking her for inspiring their kids, and the unwavering support of her family and friends. Most importantly, she thought about Emily, the little girl whose courage had sparked it all, and how her simple question had taught Caitlin the power of authenticity. To cope with the pressure, Caitlin leaned on her faith and her community. She spent hours praying, journaling, and reflecting on her journey. She surrounded herself with loved ones who reminded her of her worth and encouraged her to stay focused on her mission. Slowly but surely, she learned to let go of the need for universal approval, focusing instead on staying true to her values. By senior year of college, Caitlin had achieved nearly everything a basketball player could dream of. Championships, records, awards, and endless accolades. Yet none of these accomplishments compared to the fulfillment she felt knowing she had touched lives in meaningful ways. As she prepared for her final home game, emotions swirled within her. This wasn't just the end of a chapter. It was the culmination of years of hard work, growth, and connection. On the eve of the game, Emily surprised Caitlin with a heartfelt gesture. She handed her a small, beautifully wrapped box containing a framed photo of the two of them taken shortly after their first meeting. Beneath the picture, written in Emily's neat handwriting, was a simple yet profound message. "Thank you for showing me that it's okay to believe." Tears streamed down Caitlin's face as she hugged Emily tightly, overwhelmed by gratitude. Next day, as Caitlin stepped onto the court for her final game, she carried not just the weight of expectations, but also the warmth of knowing she had made a lasting impact. Fans held signs bearing messages like, "We believe in you," and "You've changed our lives," while teammates wore wristbands inscribed with the phrase, "Courts and Conviction." Even opponents tipped their hats to her legacy, acknowledging the inspiration she had brought to the sport. When the final buzzer sounded, marking the end of Caitlin's collegiate career, the arena erupted in applause. But for Caitlin, the loudest cheer came from within, from the knowledge that her journey had been about more than basketball. It had been about faith, connection, and the belief that everyone has the power to make a difference. As she walked off the court for the last time, arm in arm with Emily, Caitlin glanced up at the stands. Parents, children, coaches, and fans, all united by a shared sense of purpose, stood clapping, cheering, and crying. In that moment, Caitlin realized something profound. Her story wasn't just hers anymore. It belonged to everyone who had been touched by it, carrying forward the lessons of courage, authenticity, and love. Though the game was over, Caitlin knew her journey was far from finished. Together with Emily, she would continue planting seeds of hope and connection, reminding the world that sometimes the smallest moments can lead to the biggest changes. And as long as they stayed true to themselves, there was no limit to what they could achieve. The months following Caitlin's final college game marked the beginning of a new chapter, one filled with uncertainty, excitement, and boundless potential. For years, basketball had been the driving force behind her schedule, her decisions, and her identity. Now, as she stepped into the world beyond collegiate sports, Caitlin faced a crossroads. Would she chase fame in professional leagues? Use her platform to inspire others on an even larger scale? Or perhaps find balance between pursuing her passion and nurturing the relationships that mattered most? Whatever path she chose, one thing was certain. Emily would remain by her side, cheering her on every step of the way. Caitlin's first major decision came sooner than expected. Just weeks after graduation, she received offers from several prestigious organizations. Some wanted her to join their teams, while others sought her as a motivational speaker or brand ambassador. Each proposal came with its own set of promises: lucrative contracts, global recognition, and opportunities to travel the world. But amidst the glitz and glamour, Caitlin felt torn. She knew these options could propel her career further, but they also carried risks. Risks of losing touch with the authenticity that had defined her journey so far. One evening, as Caitlin sat at her kitchen table surrounded by papers detailing each offer, Emily walked in holding 2 cups of hot chocolate. "I thought you might need this," the now 13-year-old said, placing 1 cup beside Caitlin before sliding into the chair across from her. Looking at the scattered documents, Emily tilted her head curiously. "Are you trying to decide what to do next?" Caitlin sighed, running a hand through her hair. "Yeah, I guess I am. It's harder than I thought it would be." Emily sipped her drink thoughtfully before asking, "What makes your heart happy? Not just right now, but deep down." Caitlin blinked, surprised by the simplicity yet depth of Emily's question. It reminded her of the advice she often gave during speeches. Focus on what truly matters, not what looks impressive from the outside. Taking a moment to reflect, Caitlin realized her heart wasn't drawn to flashy endorsements or high-profile competitions. Instead, it yearned for connection, for the chance to continue inspiring people, mentoring young minds, and making a tangible difference in communities. With renewed clarity, Caitlin made her choice. She declined the professional league offers and instead accepted a role as a youth mentor and advocate for mental health awareness. Her new position allowed her to combine her love for basketball with her passion for helping others, creating programs that empowered children to pursue their dreams while staying grounded in values like kindness, resilience, and faith. Though the pay wasn't as extravagant as some of the other offers, Caitlin felt a sense of peace knowing she was staying true to herself. As Caitlin embarked on this new adventure, Emily continued to play a pivotal role in her life. The teenager had grown into a confident and compassionate young leader, often accompanying Caitlin to events and workshops. Together, they visited schools, community centers, and churches, sharing stories of hope and perseverance. Emily's natural ability to connect with kids made her an invaluable partner, especially during activities designed to encourage self-expression and curiosity. One memorable event took place at a rural elementary school where resources were scarce, but spirits ran high. As Caitlin spoke about overcoming challenges and believing in oneself, Emily distributed colorful notebooks and pencils to the students, urging them to write down their dreams. "Even if it seems impossible today," Emily told the wide-eyed children, "writing it down makes it real, and someday you'll look back and see how far you've come." The impact of their visit became evident months later, when Caitlin received a letter from the school's principal. Enclosed were drawings and notes from the students, expressing gratitude for the inspiration they had received. One note stood out, a simple sketch of a basketball court with the words, "Thank you for showing us we can dream big." Reading those words brought tears to Caitlin's eyes, reminding her once again of the ripple effect small actions can create. Despite her successes, Caitlin occasionally struggled with moments of doubt. Balancing her new responsibilities with personal time proved challenging, especially as demands on her schedule increased. There were days when exhaustion threatened to overwhelm her, leaving her questioning whether she was doing enough. During these times, Emily served as both a cheerleader and a voice of reason. "You're human, Caitlin," Emily reminded her one evening after a particularly grueling day. "You don't have to fix everything or save everyone. Just being there for people is enough." Her words struck a chord within Caitlin. Slowly, she began setting boundaries, learning to prioritize rest and self-care without guilt. She realized that taking care of herself wasn't selfish. It was necessary if she wanted to continue giving her best to others. This shift in mindset not only improved her well-being but also strengthened her relationships, including her bond with Emily. Their friendship evolved in beautiful ways as they navigated life's ups and downs together. While Caitlin provided guidance and support, Emily offered fresh perspectives and unwavering optimism. They celebrated victories, mourned losses, and laughed until their sides hurt over silly jokes. Whether baking cookies in the kitchen, watching old movies on lazy Sundays, or practicing free throws in the driveway, their shared moments were filled with joy and authenticity. One crisp winter morning, as snow blanketed the ground outside, Caitlin and Emily sat bundled up in blankets, sipping hot cocoa by the fireplace. Emily broke the comfortable silence with a question that caught Caitlin off guard. "Do you ever think about writing a book?" she asked innocently. Caitlin raised an eyebrow, amused. "A book? About what?" "About everything," Emily replied earnestly. "Your story, your faith, all the cool stuff you've done. People would love to read it, I bet." The idea lingered in Caitlin's mind long after their conversation ended. At first, she dismissed it as impractical. Who would want to read a book by her? But as weeks turned into months, the notion grew more appealing. Writing a book could be another way to reach people, to share lessons learned and inspire readers to embrace vulnerability and faith in their own lives. Determined to give it a try, Caitlin began jotting down thoughts in a journal. She wrote about her childhood, her struggles with self-doubt, and the pivotal moments that shaped her journey. She included anecdotes from her time with Emily, highlighting the profound impact their friendship had on her growth. Slowly but surely, the pieces came together, forming the foundation of what would become a deeply personal memoir. When the manuscript was finally complete, Caitlin nervously sent it off to publishers. To her astonishment, the response was overwhelmingly positive. Within weeks, she signed a deal with a major publishing house, and soon enough, her book, titled Courts and Conviction: Finding Faith Beyond the Game, hit shelves nationwide. Readers praised its honesty, humor, and relatability, calling it a source of comfort and motivation. Bookstores hosted signing events where fans lined up for hours, eager to meet the woman whose words had touched their hearts. For Emily, seeing Caitlin's success brought immense pride. She attended the book launch party, standing proudly beside her friend as cameras flashed and reporters fired questions. When asked for her thoughts on Caitlin's achievement, Emily grinned and said, "Simply, she deserves it. She's the best person I know." Though Caitlin basked in the glow of her accomplishments, she never lost sight of her roots. She returned frequently to her hometown, visiting schools, coaching clinics, and volunteering at shelters. These trips reminded her of where she came from and reinforced her commitment to giving back. Emily joined her whenever possible, relishing the chance to reconnect with familiar faces and contribute to causes close to her heart. As the years rolled on, Caitlin and Emily's partnership blossomed into something extraordinary. Their combined efforts inspired countless individuals to believe in themselves, ask bold questions, and strive for meaningful connections. Together, they proved that greatness isn't measured by trophies or titles. It's defined by the lives you touch and the legacies you leave behind. And though neither Caitlin nor Emily could predict exactly what the future held, one truth remained: steadfast. Their story was far from over. With courage, authenticity, and unwavering faith, they would continue planting seeds of hope, knowing that even the smallest gestures could spark waves of change. After all, it was in those quiet, unassuming moments, the kind born from genuine connection, that the most extraordinary stories unfolded. Years passed, and Caitlin's journey continued to unfold in ways that surprised even her. Her memoir, Courts and Conviction: Finding Faith Beyond the Game, became a national bestseller, earning praise not just for its inspiring message, but also for its raw honesty. Readers from all walks of life, students, parents, athletes, and spiritual seekers, wrote heartfelt letters thanking Caitlin for sharing her story. Some admitted they had picked up the book expecting tales of basketball, glory, but instead found themselves reflecting on their own lives. Others shared how Caitlin's words had helped them navigate personal struggles, reignite their faith, or simply feel less alone. The success of the book opened doors to opportunities Caitlin hadn't anticipated. Invitations poured in for speaking, engagements at conferences, universities, and corporate events. She spoke about leadership, resilience, and the importance of staying grounded despite life's challenges. Her talks were always infused with stories from her childhood, her basketball career, and her friendship with Emily. Audiences left feeling inspired, equipped with practical lessons they could apply to their own journeys. One of the most memorable events took place at a global youth summit in New York City. As Caitlin stood on stage addressing thousands of young people from around the world, she felt a deep sense of gratitude. Looking out at the sea of faces, she remembered how far she'd come since those early days playing basketball in Iowa gyms. "When I was your age," Caitlin began, "I never imagined I'd be standing here today. But looking back, I realized something important. Every step of my journey, the victories, the failures, the moments of doubt, they all mattered. They shaped me into who I am now." She went on to emphasize the power of small actions. "You don't have to change the entire world to make a difference," she said. "Start where you are. Ask questions, listen deeply, and trust that your efforts will ripple outward in ways you can't predict." By the time she finished speaking, the audience erupted into applause, many rising to their feet in admiration. Meanwhile, Emily was carving out her own path. Now 16 years old, she had grown into a confident and compassionate leader within her school and community. Her friendship with Caitlin remained as strong as ever, though their dynamic had shifted slightly. While Caitlin continued to serve as a mentor, Emily increasingly stepped into the role of a peer, a partner in creating positive change. Together, they brainstormed ideas for initiatives aimed at empowering young people, particularly girls, to pursue their passions without fear. One such initiative was called Courage Courts, a program designed to provide underprivileged children access to sports facilities while teaching them valuable life skills like teamwork, perseverance, and self-belief. Funded by proceeds from Caitlin's book and various sponsorships, Courage Courts launched in several cities across the country. Each location featured not only basketball courts, but also spaces for workshops on topics ranging from mental health to financial literacy. The project quickly gained traction, earning recognition from educators, policymakers, and community leaders alike. For Emily, working alongside Caitlin on Courage Courts solidified her desire to dedicate her life to helping others. Though still in high school, she began exploring potential career paths in social work and nonprofit management. Teachers often noted how Emily balanced her academic responsibilities with her extracurricular commitments, always leading with kindness and determination. Classmates admired her ability to bring people together, whether organizing charity drives or rallying support for local causes. Their bond remained central to both their lives. Even as Caitlin traveled extensively for speaking engagements and Emily juggled schoolwork and volunteer activities, they made time for each other. Phone calls, text messages, and weekend visits ensured they stayed connected. During one such visit, Emily surprised Caitlin with an idea that would mark another milestone in their journey. "We should write a second book," Emily suggested during a quiet evening at Caitlin's house. "But this time, it should be co-written, your story and mine." Caitlin raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "What would we call it?" Emily grinned mischievously. "How about Courts and Questions? Because that's what started everything." The idea resonated deeply with Caitlin. Writing a follow-up book wasn't something she had considered, but the thought of collaborating with Emily excited her. It would allow them to share not only their individual experiences, but also the lessons they had learned together. Over the next year, they worked tirelessly on the manuscript, weaving their perspectives into a cohesive narrative. The result was a powerful exploration of friendship, faith, and the transformative power of asking big questions. When Courts and Questions hit shelves, it received widespread acclaim. Critics praised its unique dual-author format, noting how seamlessly Caitlin and Emily's voices complemented each other. Fans loved reading about their evolving relationship, from the day Emily asked her fateful question to their current roles as partners in advocacy. Book tours brought them to cities large and small, where crowds gathered to hear them speak about the importance of connection and authenticity. Through it all, Caitlin and Emily remained committed to their mission of uplifting others. They expanded Courage Courts internationally, partnering with organizations in countries facing economic hardship. In places where resources were scarce, the program provided not just sports equipment, but also mentorship programs and educational materials. Children who once dreamed of playing basketball now envisioned brighter futures, thanks in part to Caitlin and Emily's efforts. As Emily prepared to graduate high school, she reflected on how much her life had changed since meeting Caitlin. What began as a simple question had blossomed into a lifelong partnership rooted in mutual respect and shared purpose. On the morning of her graduation ceremony, Caitlin presented her with a gift, a framed photo of the two of them taken during the first Courage Court's launch event. Beneath it, written in Caitlin's neat handwriting, was a message. To Emily, my partner in courage and conviction, thank you for believing. Tears welled up in Emily's eyes as she hugged Caitlin tightly. I couldn't have done any of this without you, she whispered. Caitlin smiled, brushing away her own tears. And I couldn't have done it without you. Looking ahead, neither Caitlin nor Emily knew exactly what the future held. Caitlin planned to continue writing, speaking and advocating for causes close to her heart. Emily hoped to attend college majoring in social entrepreneurship so she could build sustainable solutions for underserved communities. Yet no matter where life took them, they vowed to stay connected, to keep asking questions, seeking answers, and making a difference. Their story served as a testament to the power of vulnerability and connection. A single moment, a little girl asking a basketball star about God, had sparked a movement that transcended boundaries and touched countless lives. It reminded everyone who heard it that greatness isn't defined by fame or fortune but by the impact you leave on the world. On a crisp autumn afternoon, years after their initial encounter, Caitlin and Emily stood side by side on a newly built Courage Court in a small town overseas. Children laughed and cheered as they played basketball under the golden sunlight. Watching them, Caitlin turned to Emily and said, "Do you remember when you asked me if we're supposed to change the whole world?" Emily nodded, smiling. "Yeah, I do." "Well," Caitlin continued, gesturing toward the joyful scene before them, "maybe we didn't change the whole world, but we sure changed this corner of it." Emily grinned, linking her arm through Caitlin's. "And that's enough." In that moment, surrounded by laughter, hope, and the promise of brighter tomorrows, they knew their journey was far from over. Together, they had planted seeds of faith, courage, and connection that would continue to grow, inspiring generations to come. And as long as they stayed true to themselves, there was no limit to what they could achieve.